Or there we go.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right, so. You know, when I do this, it gets rid of my little. There we go, let's stop sharing. I gotta get used to Zoom. I'm not quite used to this. Normally I do Teams. Okay, so we're gonna do share. Do this one, share sound. We're gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance this way. We'll see if it works. I think Natasha recommended this. Somebody did. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yay.
Perfect.
We did.
That was a nice way of doing it.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that was a great idea. Now I just have to figure. Sure, there we go. Stop share. Okay. I'll get this done eventually. All right, so our first order of business is to review possible employment contracts for interim general manager and interim ops manager. Do we have an update from our committee, ICC committee? Is that correct?
Sean, did you want to talk or do you want me to talk?
What was the question? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear it.
She's okay.
Yeah, what's the status of the interviewing and potential employment contract for the general manager and ops manager?
Okay, so I'll speak to that. We interviewed 3 people, 2 people for general manager. Or actually, there's 3 people.
3 people, right?
Because one of the gentlemen, I think Mr. Olson, applied for general manager plus ops manager. And then we had the 2 other GM managers were, one was probably more favorable to the group. I think his name was John Anton, and the other one was Patrick, Mr. Patrick from Detroit district. He was probably not as good background and all that, but his work, his history was based on he basically took care of all of the scheduling management for the district in Detroit, and before that in Dallas. So he's basically a planning manager, and taking care of a schedule of a big district like that is a full-time job. I'm sure of that, because I know kind of similar things have gone on with planning managers I've dealt with in the past, and that's a big job, but it's not. It encompasses all your time, but I'm not sure you're bringing what we were looking for. In other words, if you had huge projects, scheduling managers are very important. But this is a small district. You have a lot of hats you got to wear, and I didn't see that in his experience where he was doing too much more than that. So Mr. Patrick is probably not the most desirable, even though his education and background looked pretty good. He just didn't have the right skill set, I didn't think. That's my opinion.
I concur.
I don't want to speak for the others, but and then the other person, John, he had a lot of the skills that you might look for in a general manager. I think he was kind of well versed in all of the disciplines of setting up and districts and such to do this kind of work. His only problem that I saw, and he kind of talked through it for me, was his tenure. You know, a lot of his jobs were relatively short. I call it he has a long career, probably 20 some years, and they were all assignments that looked like they lasted 3 years.
Mhm.
But he had kind of at the same time going on in his life, he was consulting on a lot of projects.
Mhm.
And on the side, I don't know whether these are side contracts or what. So, you know, he kind of talked his way out of me being concerned about it by saying that he's managing a lot of other things in his life related to, they're all related to you know, this type of work. So,
Mhm.
but he had the skills, I thought, you know, so that's the second candidate. The third candidate was Mr. Olson, and he just clearly does not fit the general manager mold. He does fit the ops manager mold, and he applied for both those jobs, and I think he's much more suited to day-to-day operations. And that's the better job fit and for him. I wouldn't recommend him for the GM job just because he doesn't have any skills to going out there and getting grants and taking care of the higher level stuff you need in the manager. So that was kind of my take on that. I think at this point I would, though John was relatively good, I think it warrants a look at other candidates just because I'd like to see someone with a lot of more purely executive stuff that's in his background. But he's not a bad candidate. So we might not find a better candidate. And I think he would be suitable, but I'm looking for excellence. And because we want this to be just, let's pick the very best we can. We have an opportunity to do that and we want to be successful. Everybody wants that. So let's I know we're in a hurry, but let's be patient.
Well, I believe we still have another few days that we have to have the RFP posted before any decision can be made. And then I
So-
saw that someone had rescinded their,
Yes, that is accurate, but it wasn't anybody we had interviewed yet.
okay.
And so, and I mostly agree with everything that John just said. I think the two candidates that should move forward, in my opinion, are Brent and John. And I think we need to ask Brent a few more questions about his level of knowledge, because I think it's higher than the questions we asked him, if that makes any sense. I re-reviewed his resume after I re-reviewed everyone's resume after the interviews. And I'd like to ask him some further questions to see if what I read on the paper is what I suspect, which is that he may be a bit more ready for general manager than it said. My personal opinion is leadership is important in this person, but the most important thing is that they are 100% ready to meet compliance. It is an interim position, so this isn't the person we're hiring forever. So really, we need somebody who can literally check some boxes and dot some I's and cross some T's to get all of these compliance issues that we have going on reduced. That's my 2 cents of the. And I think Doug joined.
He did, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any feedback?
I completely agree with Natasha. I think we have outstanding candidates, and we need people that can come in and hit the ground running. And I think we've got that in the two candidates Natasha suggested.
Okay, I don't think we can make any decisions today. The RFP has to be posted.
No way.
For 7 days before we can say we're at our final two, but I appreciate that feedback.
And on that note, I'm sorry, I posted the RFP. I would really appreciate if another board member would look at that and look at our notes for RFP. I just want to be transparent. I did my best. I would
Yeah.
like someone else to, I mean, I know Michaela, you glanced at it too, but like, if anybody feels like you have the experience to say this does meet RFP, I do not want this to come back on us if I did it wrong. And I will be transparent in the fact that I have answered lots of RFPs. I have never posted one myself. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think possibly if we could get some assistance from ODOT, I think that would be amazing. They do have the expertise, and I think that as very new board members, this is gonna be most of our first time posting.
I just don't want it to come back on us that we didn't do the right process.
Absolutely, and it is listed on our website.
Right.
It is under, I think you can get to it from the home screen. Where is it, Natasha? Now I can't remember. Oh, never mind.
I'm
For
looking at it
employee, yeah, you can get to it from the homepage. It says employment and RFP.
now. RFPs. Okay, there you go.
Yep, and then they are listed there together.
Perfect.
Maybe we can send that over to Jennifer to take a look.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so our plan is we still have this open until, what did we put on there?
I think it's the 30th, but
Okay.
that's I think statement. Sorry. I'll look.
Okay. So we have a little bit more time for additional applicants to come in. You guys will continue to interview. I did receive some feedback on, the request to, contact references on some of the resumes that have been sent in. Special districts did confirm that we are allowed to, check references on people that provide them to us. That was sufficient to be able to check those references. Becky is on the call and she was gonna speak to that a little bit. She had been requested to contact those references and she had some feedback. So Becky, do you want to come off mute and let the group know?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So things are extremely busy at UPTD, and I do not have the time and do not feel it is appropriate to check references for everybody if we are not going to be moving forward with them. I'm happy to check references for anybody that you are interested in moving forward with, but that is my recommendation. I just need, I guess, the board's thoughts and opinions on that. And then I'd also made a suggestion to Michaela, and I don't know, Michaela, if you would like me to speak about that now.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, so go ahead.
That was about the staffing agency.
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead and speak to that.
Okay. So I made a suggestion, and I took it to Michaela so she could take it to the board, and she asked me to bring it up today. And my suggestion is that we just do away with these contracts. I already have a contract with the local staffing agency. We can continue to do the interviews, and then what would happen is we would just tell the staffing agency, hey, we're going to give you this candidate. They're going to be your employee, but work for us for X amount of days or, 3 to 6 months. The staffing agency pays them. The staffing agency assumes all liabilities. So if the candidate were to say not work out, we would just call the staffing agency and say, hey, please ask them not to come back tomorrow. And they would handle that for us. So it takes all the liability away from us. We're not having to try to break a contract. The other benefit of this is that the staffing agency does offer medical benefits to their employees. And so these interim positions would have the ability to have benefits that we cannot offer because it is a contracted position. And I did call today to find out kind of what the cost is for their benefits. Obviously, it depends on the level of enrollment, whether it's employee or employee family, but it's $130 to $250 a week. Not the greatest, but it is an option for them to have benefits if that's something they need. I didn't know, I kind of felt like that might help us.
Is that something that we can
Right.
cover in the contract with the staffing agency or no?
Well, no,
Well, we
I-
pay
I would
we'll
have,
pay everything. We'll
we pay the staffing agency.
exactly. We'll pay
So-
for all their benefits, for their employment, plus we'll pay.
No. So the way it works is we tell the staffing agency what we're paying them. The staffing agency does all their payroll and they send us a bill for their payroll and the contracted amount that we're contracted with.
Right.
And then the
We pay-
employees pay for their own insurance through the staffing agency.
Mm.
So we wouldn't even need a contract. That would be the whole point of going with the staffing agency, is to get rid of this contract so that if we hired an interim and they were not working out, we don't have to go through legal and the hassle of trying to break a contract. We just call the staffing agency and say, sorry, they're not working out. Please ask them not to return. And they would collect any items that we had given them, such as, door keys or things like that.
Was this a 6-month contract or 3 months?
That is an interesting idea. I mean, I really hadn't thought of that. And it kind of alleviates a lot of the liability that whether or not these contracts are 100% ferreted out. I think if we decided to go this direction, it would be my recommendation that we pay enough that covering that $130 a paycheck is part of their salary. I mean, I get that it's not like they can choose how to do it, what they want with it, but does that make sense to everyone?
So just to give you guys an idea, because you did, you did say like $25,000 for like a 3-month contract. So our fee on that $25,000 would be $4,500. And I did verify with Sherry, our finance manager, and that is well within our budget if that is something we wanted to move forward with.
So there is an additional cost to it. So my concern is, and I'll speak from my professional experience in the insurance industry, we are not going to completely be absolved of liability by going with the staffing company. That's not really how it works, although probably staffing company will take the brunt of any liability. I think for me, the bigger concern is that we're already where we are in the process and we've basically done the legwork. And then the additional issue for me is that staffing companies a lot of times are used for less skilled work, where we're looking for an executive level or a high level manager for both of these positions. And we've already listed them in several areas that have allowed us to find candidates across the country that match these things. So I'm wondering if this is going to just set us back further in trying to find the right person.
Can we not do the best of both worlds, which is we continue our process and we just hire them through the staffing agency?
Yes, that is what I'm suggesting. And this particular staffing agency, they do hire executives. They do recruit for executives. They would, because we don't want that fee, but they do headhunting for like the higher level and all of those things. But we would continue with our process. We would just not have them be a contracted employee. They would just be an employee of the staffing agency working for UPTD.
Well, they would be a contracted employee. They'd be contracted with the staffing agency and we would be their special employer. I think that if this is something that the board is interested in, I would request that we be provided additional information about the staffing company so we know what the cost is, what the contract looks like. And I guess, I don't know if we give the staffing company the contracts that we've already had produced by our attorney. I'm not quite sure.
Start talking.
No.
John, are you asking a
Yeah, I
question?
had some questions for Becky. I'm trying to make sure I understand all of the costs associated with an outside agency doing this. And you mentioned $130 to $250 a week. Is that just for medical benefits or what? What does that cover?
Becky?
We don't hear you.
Is Becky there?
I think she's muted.
Oh.
You're muted, Becky.
Alright.
Oh,
Okay.
Hi,
All right.
sorry.
Did you hear my question, Becky?
No, can you repeat it? I was having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood all the costs associated with having an outside agency do the hiring and firing of this employee. So what I did hear you say that it was $130 to $250 a week. Is that just for the medical benefits, or what does that cover?
That is the cost of the medical benefits through the staffing agency.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not something that's a cost to us. It's a cost to, it would be a cost to whoever's working for us if they wanted benefits through the staffing agency. But it
Okay.
was a means for them to have benefits since we're not offering that in our contracts.
Okay. Okay, so what about, can you delineate what are the total costs for them to do this rather than?
So yeah, so on a $25,000 3-month contract, our cost would be $29,500. So that's wages plus the cost of the staffing agency combined.
29, is that what you said?
Yep, 29,500.
Okay,
And that's for the 3 months at 25,000.
so let's just follow on with that. Assuming that we hired somebody we had high confidence in, based on doing some significant checking of the background. I don't think you probably would have to worry about legalese issues with hiring and firing somebody that didn't work out, because we're not hiring somebody unless we have confidence in them. And so if we do our homework up front, I don't think we'll have an issue. And if we do have an issue, if you have to fire somebody, it's probably for good cause. And so we then would entertain the likes of our legal team to.
But so that
You're-
that's
you're-
what I'm trying to avoid is if we go with the staffing agency and for some reason it does not work out, it takes that stress off the board and having to have more legal fees and bringing in the attorneys and having to break a contract, whereas the board can just take a vote and then contact the staffing agency and that's it.
Yeah, I just don't know what, again, I think that makes a lot more sense when you're hiring people who you have low confidence in their success of being with us. Not a person we're going to vet. Okay,
Well,
we're
I
not
guess-
about to just hire somebody quickly. We're gonna, we're in the beginning of it right now. So think
I
about
guess,
I mean, I'm not saying which way to go, but I just want everybody to consider both sides of the coin,
well, if I guess my pushback to that would be, if that's the truth, why are we hiring an interim? I feel like we're hiring an interim because we need somebody sooner than later.
I think if you can hire somebody in an interim in any job, that would be
Oh.
the preferred way to do it. But many people, professionals that have very high credentials and such, wouldn't accept an interim job.
I wouldn't, yeah, that's the true statement. I wouldn't, yeah.
So that's my point, is I just think this isn't a production person that's, you're paying slightly over minimum wage that you have a lot of problems with. They have all sorts of hidden problems. This is a kind of a seasoned professionals. I think we should be looking at, and I think the ones that we are tending towards are that. So it does require that we do some checking on that person, and this goes to, well, whether it's Becky that does it or somebody else that does checks the references. I would say my my recommendation is that when you call a reference, that you ask that reference to give you another name of a person that can refer, so that you're pulling the string a little bit on the references. Don't just accept.
I'm very limited what I can do with references. And without an employment application, I cannot contact previous employers. I can only contact the references they listed. And most people are not going to list a reference that's going to
Right.
maybe not know about their employment or say anything derogatory.
Yeah,
And
I agree with you on, that's the first reference you get. I agree exactly. But what I'm saying is why it's so important when you're checking references, the conversation goes somewhat like, hi, I'm Becky and I'm, know a little bit about, Jim. And, when you have your conversation and when it's done, almost done, say, can you give us a name of somebody else that's worked with Jim?
You legally cannot do
I
that,
can't
John.
do that. Yeah. And,
Oh my gosh, no wonder.
and as HR,
No,
without a
that's,
Wouldn't
signed,
that seem to,
yeah,
that would seem to make all sorts of sense, but I guess not.
it's very logical. You're very right, but that's legally,
I
we have to
can't.
get
Yeah.
authorization. So Becky, okay, to a step back,
Okay.
would it be good for the hiring committee to reach out to the applicants or whatever the board decides today and request to check the previous employment so that so get them in writing from each applicant so that
So
you
what
have the
I'll do-
authority to do that? We don't need them to fill out an application.
So no, we don't need an application, but here's the thing, as HR, without a signed release, the only thing I can say
That's
is,
what I'm saying. I'm asking for a signed release from each of them.
Yeah, I thought, I
Yes.
agree. Natasha, that's exactly right. Yes.
I need a signed release, and I don't want a signed release. I want contact information for previous employers and a signed release. I don't want just the references off their resume.
Okay, I can do that.
Please stop for just a second. We need to call this meeting back to order. We have people
Okay.
out online, and it's very hard for everybody to talk over each other and nobody's being heard. If you want to speak, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. This cannot be a situation where we're just talking over each other. Okay, so if somebody has something they want to say, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. I don't even know where we are in this conversation right now. John, did you get to finish your point?
I was basically, when Natasha finished out with, asking for some sort of a release, I wholeheartedly agreed with that approach. That was my statement.
Okay, I have run this by Special Districts Council, specifically the request that Natasha made that references be checked, Becky's objection to references being checked, and it went through special districts and we were told if somebody has put references on their application or on their resume, that people can call and check references. The attorney gave us a template of questions that we can ask. So we have an ability to be able to check references and we have something signed off by an attorney that says these are the questions we can ask. The question right now is Becky going to be the one checking references? Is that what our request is? Or is it going to be done in the committee? Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
I just, I'm wondering if Becky has to be the one to do it, because if our committee can do it, that would make more sense. And I also, as far as if we have to terminate the agreement, isn't that already in our contract anyway? So it seems like the thing that they're providing is already covered.
I believe it is in our contract. Could we have the committee take a closer look at those contracts and make sure that we have properly listed those things in the contract? Natasha?
Sure.
Oh, you
I
had
can
your,
be,
I was just.
no, I'm not going to speak until I raise my hand. So, I raised my hand so I could say, sure, that sounds great.
Perfect. All right, so we're gonna double check whether or not that's already in the contract. Are we agreeing that the interviewing committee is going to be checking the references? Natasha?
I personally do not have capacity to do that. So not by the 30th. I don't. But I mean, I could take someone, but I do not have capacity to check all references.
Okay, Doug or John, do you have any capacity to check references?
I would be happy to check references. I just wanted to make sure I clarified at this point that we're only checking the reference that they provide in their application. We're not going to pull the string and ask them for any more than what they've already provided. Is that correct?
There is a template that you can follow that was signed off by our attorney.
Michaela, sorry to interrupt, but Doug and I both don't know how to raise our hand, and we put it in the chat.
Okay. Doug? It should be under,
Yes.
reasons, I think. Go ahead, Doug.
I can help John with that process if he needs it.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like everybody can take a little bit of that. So then the other question is whether or not we're going to use a staffing agency fully or in part to try to fill this position. I think all of us are in agreement that we need a little bit of additional information. So Becky, can you put something together that has the information for the staffing company so that we can review by our next meeting?
Yeah, I will reach out to the staffing agency.
Natasha?
Are we checking references for every applicant for every position, or there were some applicants we chose not to interview because of lack of experience? What is the request?
I don't think it would be a good use of time to check references on someone you don't intend to interview. That's my opinion. Does anyone else have an opinion?
So, I concur.
Sorry, I don't know how do I raise my hand?
Under the heart, the reactions.
I don't have that. Why don't I have that? Can I speak really quick? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I do not check references, and typically until it is somebody that I am either have just done a final interview or I have the intent of moving forward and the possibility of a job offer.
All right, Sherry, you have your hand up. I don't know if it's you or John.
It's John.
Go
I
ahead.
think that I just wanted to clarify, right now we have one good applicant for the GM. And so that particular person should be, we could start on the background checks for that person. And then we have one good person for the ops. And so that's just two people right now. Tell me if I'm wrong, Natasha, but isn't that the case where Mr. Olson is the preferred candidate at this moment in time? It's not the final, it's just that right to date, that's all we have is he looked pretty good for the ops manager, Mr. Olson, and John Anton for the GM. All of us agreeing that this is not a final list of candidates by any means. We're going to develop that further. So Doug could take one employee, I could take the other, and we could start checking them. And the direction that Doug and I are asking for is that we're just going to take whatever they offered as a reference. We're not going to dig any further than that. Is that the case? Or are we going to do this caveat that they provide release to check on other references?
I don't think we're at the point of background checks yet, John. So I think we just do the references that they provided. If we are considering them, we may look at a background check later on. Natasha, you have your hand up.
So there's, okay, for my list of general manager applicants still includes Brent and John. And then for ops, for my list is Brent and Randy. Now, my question to Michaela is, when we were in the meeting, we did talk about that the committee was just doing interviews and giving recommendations. So if we did an interview, do you want references checked? Because that would mean that we also should do references for Steve Pasternak, which is only an additional person, because there's really 4 candidates at this point between both positions total that we've interviewed.
All right, what does the board think we should do on that? John, you have your hand up, or Sherry?
Yeah, I just don't see that, that's a good, use of our time to check references for Mr. Pasternak, because the 3 of us in the room didn't consider him a viable candidate as far as what I could read from the other 2. So why are we checking references with him at this point? That would seem to be a waste of time. I think we've kind of talked about this at this point, at least. Well, we really haven't decided on the ops manager job. Natasha has her own thoughts on who should get that position, and I don't want to speak for her. So it might be that we have Randy and Mr. Olson as ops manager candidates that are still in the mix until we sort that out with the rest of the board. You know, we can talk about that in more detail in another meeting if you'd like. But you know, now Natasha has her thoughts, and I have my thoughts. Doug has his thoughts, and we can sort out this ops manager position and move forward with whoever we come out from that meeting is the one that we start digging down into the references. But I think it's kind of a waste until we kind of narrow our choice to the candidate we want to move forward with.
Okay, Natasha, you have your hand up.
Yes, I agree with John. I do think it's probably not a best use of time to do the interview, but I want to ensure that like the committee is just making the recommendations. So are Kathy and Michaela okay with us essentially excluding somebody based on our interviews? I 100% agree with John that I don't think it's a good use of time, but I also don't want to be limiting. And if you guys are expecting to be able to have conversations with everybody that made it to interview phase.
I think that's a good point. Kathy, what are your thoughts?
It was my understanding that we would have at least a choice of the 2 best. I realized for ops that it seems at this point we only have had 2 interviews. I was questioning, are you guys considering any of the other applications coming in as well to interview?
My my suggestion was that we interview one of them, but that application's been pulled.
Okay, Natasha?
I concur with what Doug just said. That's my opinion as well.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds like we have more to do.
I think John wants to speak.
I missed that, John, go ahead.
So maybe we could use the first part of our next meeting just to lay out a little bit about the 3 of us, brief you, Michaela, and Kathy, about the concerns we have with the candidates so we could do a narrowing that everybody agrees with. The board kind of buys into that, the full board, you know. So, and so, because right now we're, you know, like I said, Natasha has her thoughts, I have mine, and Doug has his. And it really would be good for all of you to hear that. At the same time, we still haven't closed this. There might be new candidates coming in with application with, you know, tomorrow. Who knows? But just to do this narrowing, it may be better to get it done as quickly as possible. And then, of course, entertain anybody new that comes across Becky's desk that might be a viable candidate, you know. But I think we have a duty to go ahead and narrow this as quickly as we can with what we've done so far. So, and it wouldn't take long. I really don't think it would take more than 15 or 20 minutes to have that discussion. You know, whenever you want, Michaela, it's up to you, but.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a great idea to get suggestions from all three in the interviews. And I think that just make sure, Becky, that you are forwarding all of the candidates to the committee so that they can make the decision about interviewing or not interviewing. Kathy, you have your hand raised.
Yes, well, that was kind of what I thought was the point of the committee, what John said. So I appreciate what he said as well.
Okay. All right, you guys, do we have more to discuss on this topic, or are we ready to move on? I can list out the takeaways that I've written down if we're ready to move on.
Sorry, I raised my hand, but I have a clarifying question.
Okay,
I've been sending all applicants to the whole board. Are you changing that to just the interview committee?
no, I just wanted to make sure. It kind of sounded like maybe they hadn't seen all the candidates, so I just want to make sure that's clear. Like, they will make the decision.
I have sent all candidates to the whole board.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so these are my takeaways for our next meeting. We have everyone on the interview committee, it looks like, helping to complete references. And these are on our viable candidates. We need to review the staffing contract, and Becky's going to send us additional information. We need to double check our own contract, our proposed contract for both of these positions, to find out if we have any clauses in there for how a contract may end, how we may be able to terminate a contract if we need to do that early. And then each committee member at the next meeting will provide their basically their synopsis on the interviews that they've conducted so far. Does that sound correct? All right, I will balance of agreement. Natasha, go ahead.
Yes, that's exactly what I had in my notes.
Okay, John, did you have anything else?
Just to verify with you, when are we going to, the stuff you just asked about, it's just laid out. When do you want to do that? At the next meeting that we're convening, or is there?
Right now, we have our next meeting scheduled for September 30th, and we can certainly add another one if you guys want to, or we can just go with September 30th.
No, I think that's okay.
Okay, and then I do have a question. Have we set a time for the September 30th meeting? I couldn't remember. Oh, it looks like we set it for 5 o'clock. Yeah, Natasha?
That's what I was going to say. 5 o'clock is what my notes have.
Perfect, okay. And Natasha already sent that out to you guys, so you should have it on your calendar. Thank you for doing that, Natasha.
No problem.
All right, so we will go ahead and move on to agenda number 5, which was to review the draft of our letter for ODOT. Unfortunately, I have not received that back from our attorney yet. He is still reviewing that and said that he would probably have it done by Wednesday of next week. So we could set a meeting briefly to review that next week, or we can review it at our September 30th meeting. The only issue is that we are approaching that deadline to be able to make that request to ODOT. Natasha, go ahead.
Well, I have zero desire to notice a meeting or to even call into a meeting. It makes me nervous to not have that conversation prior to the due date.
Any other thoughts on that? All right, does the board want to set a meeting for next week on Wednesday, September 25th? Oh, I'm sorry, that is our board training day. That is probably not gonna work. How about the 26th?
That's my dad's 93rd birthday.
So that is a strong no from you, Kathy. All right, how about the 27th?
Here again, it depends on the time for me because we already have a date for a little party for him with their friends on that day.
Okay, John or Sherry, is their hand raised?
Go ahead, John.
The 27th is fine with me.
Okay. Kathy, what time would work for you on the 27th?
Well, if that Friday, it would be better like around a noon time.
All right, does that work for everybody, September 27th, June? I don't know who had their hand up first, John?
Noon.
Okay, Natasha?
Come in.
I'll be able to call in about 20 minutes.
Okay, we'll make it very brief. Doug, are you able to make it that day?
Of course.
Okay, and I can make it that day too. Becky, you have your hand up?
I'm on vacation that day, so if I don't know if you're discussing anything that I present from the staffing agency, I can forward that to you, Michaela. But I will not be available the 27th or 30th. I'm on vacation.
Okay, we're probably gonna discuss that on the 30th, not the 27th. We're gonna limit this to a very brief meeting to review a draft of this letter for ODOT on the 27th. Okay, so we'll go ahead and notice that meeting September 27th at noon to review the draft of the letter for ODOT. Natasha, go ahead.
Do you need an executive session?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Do you guys believe we need executive session for that?
I don't think so.
I would trust your guys' judgment on that. And thank you, everybody, for being understanding about the meeting.
Yeah, well, we will be discussing deliberations on real property transactions, sort of, because it has to do with these charging stations, but I don't think it's regarding the sale of the charging station. So I don't think it would need to be an executive session, but you guys have a different idea, a different feedback? Natasha?
No, I agree.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so then we are going to, anything else on this topic, or are we okay to move on? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to our executive session, which is based on ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberation designated to negotiate real property transactions. So we just need everyone to drop off the call. You can call back in. You will be sitting in the waiting room if you're not aboard. And then once we come out of executive session, we will let you back into the general meeting. So,
Michaela, this is Sherry. I am going to leave this set up for John, and Jim and I are going to step out of the office and leave John on.
perfect. That is
Okay.
Okay, cool. And I'm gonna stop the recording.
If you need, well, I took you off of mute, so
Like
you
to
can
speak.
talk anytime. Yep.
Okay.
All right, we should have people joining us again. John, do you want to let Sherry know that?
Oh, yeah, I'll go notify her.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Let me know when you're back, John.
Right, are they off?
Yeah. Like it. Just tell her you're back in.
I'm back.
Okay, perfect. We got everybody back in here. All right. So we are resuming our normal session at 1:01 p.m. All right, and I believe we are going to entertain a motion on our contracts.
I move that we approve both the transportation service contract and the vehicle lease agreement for Umpqua Rides Fleet contract that are for Reedsport, DRTF, and Sunrise, contingent on the fact that there are no structural changes after being viewed by ODOT.
All right, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, the motion passes. All right, so we have sent those contracts over to ODOT to take a look at, and hopefully we'll have some additional information soon. I will continue to keep the board updated if we have approved and signed contracts. And with that, I do not believe that there's any business for the day. Oh, Sherry, John.
I just have a question. Michaela, did you make some of the corrections to like the Umpqua Public Transportation District's name?
Our-
Those things?
All of those changes, yes, they were
Okay.
reviewed by attorney and they've been reviewed by Reedsport's attorney and they're sitting with ODOT right now.
Okay, great.
All right. David?
Yes, I was just wondering, who did you send those to at ODOT?
To Jennifer.
Jennifer, okay. Could somebody send me a copy of those?
Sure,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Kathy?
I was just wondering if at some point, for the benefit of the newer board members, maybe wait until we get our 2 additional board members. But if we could understand the relationships we have with these others, Sunrise, DRTF, Reedsport, I'm still unclear exactly what the relationship is. So maybe explain each one. Give us a little lesson, you know?
I agree. I think that would be very helpful for everyone. I don't know who could put on a training like that. It would be nice if we had some of our more tenured board members, but perhaps we could work with Jennifer and maybe Sherry and Becky. Natasha, go ahead.
I could speak to that for a few minutes. UHI was a contract like DRTF and Sunrise up until 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah, that would be very helpful.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, if that's it, I'm gonna call this meeting because I know we've had quite a few of these. Like,
Can I say one thing?
oh yes, sorry. I thought that was a
Happy birthday to Joey. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my kiddo's birthday was yesterday. We took him to the lazy river and now I'm feeling sick because my kids went back to school and they bring sickness home to our house. So, all right, you guys, I will call the meeting adjourned at 1:05 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.